In October 2014, this channel put out its first MLP video, looking at my favourite characters on the show. Now a lot has happened since then, with 3 seasons and a frickin' film taking place, as well as the general improvement in my video quality and overall production. As a result, I felt the need to update it and showcase who has risen, fallen, or stayed rooted in the same place. I don't normally follow up on countdowns, but when I do, it's done with a reason in mind. As a result, if you haven't seen the channel's original top 10 list, upcoming spoilers could ruin it for you. So if you want to go and check this channel's countdown genesis out, find out where characters placed 4 years ago, and see how terrible the video quality was in comparison, well, click the link down in the description box and I'll wait here patiently for you. Pause the video now. All good? Great! Now let's find out who the casualties of that list are, the ones that didn't make the cut this time around. Cheese Sandwich has failed to make a major appearance since Season 4's Pinkie Pride and therefore drops off. Applejack's stock since Season 4 has declined so massively that she has to completely fall off into the worst character pool whenever I redo that. And finally, Pinkie Pie, despite having some good to great episodes in the last few years, hasn't had enough consistency to keep her early season momentum going, meaning she takes a mighty fall from grace. With that in mind, as impending new arrivals, seasoned and scarred veterans, and the occasional wildcard take to the field, what does my 2018 list look like? Well, it's time to find out, and just remember that this is a very subjective topic, and that my opinion, as always, may not be the same to yours. I'm a very simple man to please, especially when it comes to this show, so if something stands out and I really like it, you know I'm going to embrace it with open arms. Some characters appear once and we just forget about them. Some linger around and build a reputation over time. Then there are some who are just so different that the splash they make is so massive that they grab you by the throat and force you to give a damn. That, ladies and gentlemen, is where I feel Bulk Biceps succeeded, as he came from nowhere to do just that. He destroyed the serious tone of Rainbow Dash's plot-setting monologue in Hurricane Fluttershy with one gruff belting of a Macho Man-esque yeah. It endeared this muscle-bound Pegasus to me, even more so when I realised that he could barely do the job he was assigned to. From there, every appearance he made, with an increasing speaking role I may add, had his personality get fleshed out in the smallest of ways each time to bring a smile to my face. He came to the CMCs with worries about his own cutie mark in the most hilarious way possible. He happily took part in the Equestria Games despite his limitations. He attended the Wonderbolt Academy to prove his worth. He's shown to be a hard worker and hold down multiple jobs. He's broken the macho stereotype you'd expect his design to lift proudly by wanting to do arts and crafts at the Camp Everfree in the Equestria Girls series, and on top of that, he is more than happy to wear Rarity's flowery monstrosity of an outfit in Rainbow Falls. Good God, and he did all of that while offering up a heart of gold accompanied with unabashed honesty in abundance. Bulk is just awesome, everyone, and with a few bigger speaking roles under his belt, who knows where he could have ended up. Although I have no doubt he'd just be pleased to be making it at all, that's for sure. A TV series can live or die by the quality of its leading protagonist. If they're consistently unlikable, it becomes unpleasant to watch, and while some shows try to make them work, some fail. Spectacularly even, which makes me happy that Twilight Sparkle has been sanded as smoothly as possible since the pilot 8 years ago, because over time, her roughness has been quite a stumbling block to overcome. One of my main irritations with this show is its inconsistent character writing. Now, Pinkie Pie, amongst many others, have been maligned with this much more than Twilight, but when you realise what they had to balance to make her work, it was a much tougher task than you'd realise, with the anxious, overzealous and inherently book-smart traits of a pony that we had to put ourselves into for most of the first 3 seasons. On top of that, she also had to showcase all of the morals that she preached. That was a very tough thing to pull off. And while I can say that her writing was handled better than others did, it hasn't stopped me from finding faults in her design. Sometimes she can be overbearing, unnecessary to so many stories, and solely exist as the embodiment of a capable hero trope, even more so in royalty, which means as the significance of her role in the show becomes less over time, so did her placing on my list. However, I still love the nerdy quirks, the unintentional hilarity of her fluctuating composure, and the showcasing of the modest, astute, and resolute alicorn that she's grown into. That, and her position as the fun-loving aunt to Florrie Hart, is so adorable that I could die from cuteness overload every single time I watch a flurry of emotions. However, it's just good to see that she still has a stern side, while still having a lot to learn even at this stage in the show's run. Her progression through the series has morphed and changed over the years, not all positively, but I still retain a soft spot for Twi. That being said though, if I could get more of the aspects that make Sci-Twi fantastic at any point, that would be great. Then again, as they are 2 different characters in the loosest possible terms, the Equestria Girls counterpart will not be influencing my decision here, unlike Bob Biceps, because there really isn't much of a difference there. Number 9 for the Princess of Friendship is fine, even though she'd obviously want to wear the crown on top of the podium. Or be happy that someone else got it. Either situation would be acceptable, you be the judge which one you'd prefer. I mentioned earlier that Pinkie Pie's decline from number 5 in 2014 to non-applicable in 2018 was a massive fall from grace. Well, that is an understatement, the fact that I managed to surpass myself with this selection, because it's more applicable to the character in mind, because they went from a very lofty pedestal in 2014 to here, number 8 in 2018. So the fact that I've mentioned this would mean that they should have fallen from quite a distance. Well, they did, because they lost their footing from 3rd. Oh, Rarity, what the hell do I do with you? Even with your flaws, I've enjoyed your adventures through fashion, self-control and networking, while of course laughing with vigour at your hilarious emotional meltdowns, because that never stops being funny. However, while I still find your company entertaining, it's ominously obscured with a sense of irritation, especially considering that while you may have shown more flair and bluntness than ever before, your endearing side that ensured the lovely contrast in your personality that drew me to you in the first place has been oddly missing. You've become more egotistical, unashamedly blind and one-dimensional, to where only on fleeting occasions do you even resemble the damn element that you were anointed to be. That being said, Clover's Horse still surprises with character growth out of legit nowhere that shocks in ways that I couldn't imagine, and highlights that when you strip back the facade, she's still a good character, albeit with flaws aplenty that still need resolving. As a result, it's easy to see why she tumbled down that hill and ended up bruised and scarred, but thankfully there is enough here, and enough episodes that feature Tabitha St. Germain's amazing, wonderful efforts that they aren't executed in vain, which means she can still retain her footing on the ladder and hopefully climb back up. All in all, Rarity is a boatload of fun with the right writer and animators at hand. She could be a fine sight to behold, a true diamond. I just wish that we could see more of it on a consistent basis, because if that was indeed the case, she would have never ended up in this position to begin with. Antagonists aren't meant to be liked, yet much like professional wrestling's ever-changing narrative structure, we've come to appreciate the bad guys for what they can offer to the thematic worlds we immerse ourselves in. Yes, they might be dicks on the surface, but if you peel that layer away, you're bound to find something that you like. Most of the time. Hell, finding redemption and forgiveness, even in your worst enemy, is one of the longest standing morals this show has. So maybe liking a villain isn't a bad thing after all. If that is indeed the case, then I'll have no problem in highlighting that this former villain has had her stature grow since the first countdown, rising 2 places. Maybe she is great and powerful after all. Trixie left quite a distinct impression in her 2 early season appearances, proving to be a real test to Twilight, albeit through cheating, hyperbole of the highest order, and more sass than a Rarity fashion critique. Her razor-sharp wit and humour, as well as her domineering presence, alongside the stunning vocal performances that Kathleen Barr brings to the table, ensured that she stuck in the mind long after she had run into the distance, achieving number 9 on the original list thanks to the sheer weight of what was provided. For the longest time, I wasn't sure if she'd ever come back, but thankfully season 6's No Second Chances happened and she found a new lease of life, being the burdensome but heartfelt sidekick to Starlight Glimmer, where her personality complex and character depth were grown exponentially, all with some great interactions and comedic moments along the way. And thanks to this creative masterstroke, she's now embedded into the series as a supporting cast member, making more and more appearances than she ever did before season 6 came along, and she's proving why we all loved her in the first place by injecting the humour needed to make even the worst episodes somewhat palpable. The fact that only 2 of her appearances, in the aforementioned No Second Chances and season 7's To Change a Changeling, have heralded bad marks on my rating scale, still proving to be the best thing in those episodes, highlights why that point comes through resolutely. So yeah, Trixie, if you keep up your consistent record, you'll be climbing this list in the future. I guarantee it. As I noted earlier, characters outside of the main cast need to make a good first impression, otherwise they will never be heard from again. Some succeed, while others find it extremely difficult and, well, you haven't heard their name on this list, so it's actually done its job in proving itself correct. However, some take a more unorthodox route to stardom, and the fact can be said for this wonky-eyed pony, because she never saw her fame coming. Derpy started life as an animation error, something that should not have become a thing. But it did, and she subsequently got turned into the unintentional queen of the then burgeoning brony fandom thanks to the wonderful thing that is the internet. Every time she appeared, joy was to be had, and in the last roundup, Hasbro rewarded our support by allowing her to speak, which unfortunately drew the ire of some extremely trigger-happy people and, concerned parents, quote-unquote, resulting in Hasbro's nod to us being much more maligned and infamous than originally intended. Thankfully, after realising the error of their execution, Derpy returned to the fold 2 seasons later and continues to show herself from time to time. However, what gets her onto this list is, of course, her starring role in Slice of Life, righting the wrongs and giving her a performance worth revelling in. Now, I wanted to include her in the original countdown, but I wasn't able to at the time. Thanks to this important episode, though, I can now give the lover of muffins a place that I had to harshly deny her 4 years prior, and I feel very proud to have done just as Hasbro have, and right a very noticeable wrong. She's adorable, funny, and most importantly, is ours. A lack of appearances means that she doesn't progress any further, but the fact that she got this high in the first place is something that will startle her. Hell, she'll probably think she got number 1 anyway. Ah, you adorable cinnamon roll. The original mascot of our fandom will remain close to mine and many hearts, and I'm sure that some coming into the fandom now aren't quite aware of how much she means to us, which explains why my undying love for her is here, and why she gets this spot over some that, honestly, probably deserved it more, but I really couldn't care less. Derpy is fantastic, and I hope we laugh and revel in the appearances we see in the future. If you've been a long-time viewer of my channel and the MLP videos that have come along with it, what I am about to say is of no surprise to you. For those of you who are watching for the first time, let me fill you in on something. I hate the gender representation issues in this show, because seriously, it's nearly 8 seasons now and MLP still hasn't got enough good and recurring male characters in it. Even though we've gotten some more over time, many of them though are still one appearance ponies or dragons or changelings or whatever the hell, leaving the main and supporting cast still as bare as it has been for the longest period. I'm a person who believes in equal rights and representation for all, regardless on where you come from, what your gender is, what your religion is, what your sexual orientation is, whatever it is, I will support it. So the fact that in 2018, My Little Pony still hasn't got enough good male characters in is frustrating, especially when you realise that there are so many bloody kids around, yet all the women work. Pretty much. So where the hell are all the men? It doesn't make any sense, and it really boils my piss! There is no established cycle for what day or week an episode takes place on, leaving room for occupational reasons amongst others as a possible explanation. Nevertheless, Hasbro needs to address this. Anyway, regardless of that, there is some good news to be found, as Spike still places in 2018. And yet he still stands as the major, frequent, long-term torchbearer of male representation in this show, which isn't a good thing. However, he has had a lot of very good events come along to make his character worthwhile, even though he's had to walk on a very rocky and treacherous road to ensure it comes to light. Season 4 capped off quite a dismal quadrilogy of years for our little dragon friend. From the beginning, he has shown immense promise with his as-of-yet untold backstory, his role as a child showing that he could do just as much as characters multiple times his size, and being the lone male amongst a friendly harem? Of course not in a sexual way, you pervs, it's just an observation and joke of ponies. You'd think that he'd have made a much larger impact by now. However, despite that, he was often marginalised into either a male stereotype that belittled him, or had to be beaten down before working his way back up in almost every episode he was a major part of. Season 5 did no favours either, while Season 7 just left him by the wayside. Either way though, I still had to stand by a character whose reputation may have been in the toilet longer than you after a late night binge at a party. He got number 8 on the last list because of underutilised potential and a personality I couldn't say no to after a while. All I was waiting for was the spark of greatness to show just how good his character could be, and Season 6 delivered by making me love him even more. He showed immense empathy, understanding, and more balls than any other character did, showing himself to be a real torchbearer of friendship. He even sung the best musical number in the whole show, in my opinion. Where else was he gonna go but up? Because if you get that much substantial development, there was no other place you were going to be. So as a result, thanks to those 3 standout Season 6 episodes, he is now on a pedestal that no male character in this show can ever reach. And while it wasn't built on properly, I know going forward we're going to see more opportunities to watch him grow. And the fact is, maybe he actually can grow at some point, because honestly, he can't stay that small forever. The fact still remains though, Spike may not have had the most consistent of times on this show, but as always, he is incredibly endearing and relatable. He speaks his mind when others don't, he shows humour or clout when necessary, not just because the moment craves it, and tries to do everything with charm and whimsy, even if it's not always executed as such. The last few seasons have seen Spike fall, rise, and fall again, but that didn't stop another rise to the top 5 of my list. Well done, Spike, you have definitely earned this promotion. If you thought Rarity and Pinky's declines were bad, they have nothing on this one. Discord was the epitome of the creativity that this series could conjure all the way back in Season 2, and provided hilarity, tension, and the presence of a villain that until more recent seasons wasn't matched. He took the number 1 spot on my prior list because I just loved what insanity he brought to the table to perk up an episode if it needed and give a real challenge to our heroines. However, along the way he seems to have stumbled on the arduous road to friendship-based enlightenment, and while John Delancey can still put in an awesome performance and the animation is just as fun as ever to give him a good showing, the episodes themselves haven't been to my liking, which has left such a figure of creative magnetism lying wasted on the floor, with his role as a mischief-making Lord of Chaos being marginalised as part of his long redemption arc that is still yet to be fully resolved to this day. Now, while I am saddened to see that my former favourite had to take such an egregious tumble out of the medal positions, there is no doubting that I still love it whenever he appears. Sure, while the quality of his appearances is no longer always guaranteed to be worth my time, he still brings smiles and laughter from me, so I shouldn't be too annoyed. This Draconicus has come a long way since his imposing debut, and I should be happy that I still get to enjoy his company, because even though he'd probably want to throttle me for even daring to admit his faults on a positive list, he still makes it to a very high position that many would want to take from him. He sits outside my top 3, and well, the fact is, while that is a good thing compared to some others, it's a reminder of how far he still has to go to reclaim my trust. I hope it's become quite apparent to you that this list is much like the stock market. Things can go up as well as plummet. Now that sounds like a cliched statement taken from a financial workers lexicography book, but trust me, it works and factors in a lot of sense, especially when you realise that we have reached the final climber on this subjective favouritism merry-go-round with rungs on it that is this countdown. This character in question has done so keeping that awfully pristine bow intact. Seriously though, after all of the shit you have been through, how the hell does that thing not get disturbed or taken off your head at all? Sorry about that. It was a cute cameo that originally drew me to Applebloom, and since then I've seen her go from a rambunctious scamp desiring independence to a rambunctious scamp who now has her much-longed butt tattoo and is learning how to dance. Progression much? Out of the 3, this bow-wearing crusader not only delivers the best episodes, but also has shown more growth and development over time to a point where I really want to see where her character goes every season. It's not just cuteness anymore, I am invested in watching the youngest core Apple sibling blossom into something quite fantastic. Her attitude is still as blunt and observant as ever, but with her added duties and the expansion of her social life, it's created a much more well-rounded filly that prior to the last 2 seasons looked like a collection of Happy Meal toys just waiting to be put in the right box. And to further emphasise my point, Sweetie Belle may be diabetes-inducingly cute and productive, and on her day, Scootaloo can be entertaining, they both still feel one-dimensional in comparison to Applebloom, who thanks to On Your Marks and her past episodes, showcased more on an emotional and plot-driven level, and most of it has stuck too. While I can't really conjure up much to thought in terms of what direct progression the other 2 have managed to get. She's leading her troop by example for a reason, and through what I've seen from this bow-laden cutie over the years, I am confident that as the CMCs grow and expand their operations forward in Equestria, she will continue to bring home the bacon in the process. She climbs from 4th to the bronze medal placing in style. If given the choice between a mini marshmallow, a chicken, and a sweet apple, the decision would be very, very easy to make. I'd eat all of them, of course, but treasure the fruit more so than the rest, as it'll definitely do better for me in the long run. There are 3 certainties in Brony life, and they're not death, Canadian taxes, and people understanding that this is a tired cliche of a statement. In fact, those 3 certainties are that villains will most likely be reformed at some point, anything can and will become a meme, and Fluttershy will have a supporting role as the bridesmaid of the CC Network's top 10 character lists. 4 years ago, Fluttershy lost out to Discord only because I felt her character wasn't rounded out enough for me to see her as best pony. Yet here we are. After my wish was granted, she's the only one who is in the exact same place as before. In a way, though, I'm more than happy for that to be the case. Shy Animal Horse is still as cute as a button, but the assertiveness that Iron Will imposed on her has truly changed my perception of the character, while not limiting my enjoyment in equal measure. Showing off just how far she had come has often been the only redeeming quality of her most recent episodes, but it reminds me why I still love her, because even though we've both changed since we first met, I still appreciate what she brings to the show as an occasionally reluctant voice of reason. She can now speak her mind, and not just do so she can butt in for adorable humour and stereotyping's sake. The expanding of her family life was essential in helping to further emphasise the quality of her long-term progression, proving that no matter what the writers do, even after the horror show that Season 7 was for her character, she still comes out looking just as pristine as ever, highlighting that it all paid off. What stops her from reaching the gold medal placing this time is simply that Season 7 showing, which highlighted that she needs a new edge to propel her into better light going forward. While she has grown and retained my affections over that time, it goes to show that even the character that initially pulled me into this show isn't totally perfect. Then again, no character is, even the top dog that I'm about to reveal. Regardless of that, she's firmly planted her hooves onto a place that it seems like no one will ever dislodge her from. Good for you, Fluttershy. You enjoy it, because your yays have definitely gotten louder. So here we are, the #1 spot. My new favourite character is Starlight Glimmer. Hold on a minute. Let me explain. I can fully understand your ire if Starlight is not your cup of tea. She's been thrust into the spotlight of this show for the last few seasons, with the underdeveloped nature of her personality quirks and backstory being apparent for all to see. Do not think that I don't notice that, because if even me, the biggest fan of hers, can point that out, then there shouldn't be any more problems. Okay? The fact of the matter is, without Starlight Glimmer, I would not be where I am in my love for the show. Her first appearance stunned me, as I never thought Hasbro would commission an episode featuring a leftist cult with a charismatic leader at the helm, or that she'd proved to be the only villain at the time that bucked conventions in a premiere or finale. Hell, I didn't think her almighty Path of Reformation by Twilight would actually work. But my god, it has. And now she is the main reason, outside of me making these videos, that I watch this show. Which is quite a lofty claim to hold up, but trust me, it stands with good reason. Back in 2014, when the original list was made, Discord was #1, the world was a much different place, and I was hiding my emotional frailties from pretty much everyone. And inevitably, the world just spun around doing its own thing while I revelled in the chaos and hilarity that Discord threw at me. I felt that I could do so. It was a much more peaceful time, because 4 years later, the world has gone to shit. However, in the most positive of news to come out of this list, I'm in a much better place mentally than I ever have been. Much like Starlight. She's had very good progressive growth and has shown what she can do to overcome her problems. And it mirrors me a lot more than any other character on this show, which explains in quite good terms why she managed to get the gold medal above all else. I related to Fluttershy so much early on when I was starting to get into this show, because she was the only shy, anxious, and socially awkward character that my frailties at the time could latch onto. So when Starlight put her emotive cards on the table, there was no doubt that I would love her more. Every little thing she does was the epitome of this, where she showed her socially awkward side at its zenith by being frightened about doing anything because she didn't want to make a bad first impression or get it wrong and feel judged. It is something that I have done many a time in my own life, and it still happens today. Many episodes have showcased her obvious talents, but much like No Second Prances, I and her have to know that we don't have to rely on them to define who we are. She, like me, has made friends despite struggling at times, confronted her darkest fears and hidden from her problems. She's shown drive in doing better for herself while also displaying what happens if she's sent in the wrong direction with quite damning consequences, and an absolute passion and knowledge of her favourite hobbies, all while throwing some absolutely devastating shade with a snarky sense of humour to match. I see so much of myself in Starlight Glimmer that it scares me. Then again, much like her, I've had to learn to turn a new leaf, and to have this animated series go along this ever-occurring change with me by exhibiting a mirrored counterpart to lead by example makes my enthusiasm for Glim Glam skyrocket even higher. And the fact that most of her episodes are honestly great to me solidifies her placing in concrete. She's made me laugh, cry, and smile more than all the rest in a shorter period of time, while still leaving me excited about what's to come. At the end of the day, if Starlight had remained the biggest antagonistic thorn in Twilight's side and was left behind in Season 5's bookending episodes, I'd have still placed her on this list, without question, but certainly much lower than this towering position. I am aware that she still has a long way to go to equal the main 6 in character growth and resolution of important plot points, but it goes without saying that Starlight came along at the right time for both the show and myself, and I am wholeheartedly certain that we wouldn't be the same if she hadn't, and I am eternally grateful for that. I have been Freddie Thomas, you've been people watching, this has been the Top 10 MLP Characters Revisited for the CC Network, and I will see you all next time.